According to Adam Jentleson, the Senate has become one of the greatest threats to our democracy. The United States electorate is majority female, ethnically and racially diverse, and increasingly liberal. And yet, legislation we support is constantly being blocked by the Senate. The Senate is an institution controlled by people who are almost exclusively, well, white and overwhelmingly male and disproportionately conservative. How did this happen? Adam is with me now to discuss. Adam, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Well, it's great to have you here. Such an important discussion. Just for everyone who isn't aware, you need to go out and get Adam's recent book, Kill Switch. It explores how the Senate minority uses the filibuster to protect its interests. Adam, let's just start off our discussion with, your argument that the Senate itself is one of democracy's biggest threats. Why is that, and how did it come to be?
In a word, it's or two words, minority rule. I think that what the Senate does is it imposes the will of a minority that is predominantly white and reactionary on our very diverse and ever more diverse country. I think a lot of people look at politics today and they have this fundamental sense that there's something wrong, that you have enormous majorities of people supporting what seem like common sense solutions to things like climate change, gun control, income inequality, immigration. But these things can't pass. When you look at the polls, a lot of these solutions have support upwards of 60, 70%, and which makes them clearly bipartisan.
Even abortion is actually supported by above 70% of the American electorate.
Exactly. And so, so what's the disconnect here? Why do these huge bipartisan majorities support these things, and the federal government can't seem to pass solutions to any of them? What is the disconnect? In a democracy, the majority is supposed to rule. Maybe it takes a little longer sometimes, but fundamentally, the federal government is supposed to reflect the will of the people. So what's happening here? The answer, as I lay out in the book, is the Senate. The way it has evolved is far different from the way it was supposed to be. And it has evolved because of the hard work of conservative obstructionists, starting with white supremacists in the 19th century who wanted to defend slavery, leading up to white supremacists in the 20th century who wanted to maintain Jim Crow. They created ways for conservative minorities to obstruct the will of the people. Obviously, liberals can use those tools of obstruction too, but as I show in the book, those tools benefit conservatives far more than liberals. Conservatives are the party that wants to stop progress. Liberals are the party that want to make progress. So tools that make it easy to block and obstruct and block the will of the majority fundamentally benefit conservatives more than progressives. And that is basically why you have this disconnect today between what the public wants and what the federal government has been able to do.
That is so fascinating. One of my questions was about the fact that it disappoints me that Democrats don't use the filibuster with as much regularity as Republicans to block harsh policies. Does this have anything to do with both parties sort of being beholden to corporate interest, or it really is more about, it does seem like Republicans were trying to do some terrible things in the Senate, and we blocked some of those over the last number of decades. Can you be more clear about why it benefits the conservatives?
Yeah, sure. So, and I do agree with you that some of that refusal to use it sometimes is due to the influence of corporate money. Under Trump, the Senate passed some rollbacks of Wall Street reforms that Democrats could have blocked if they had decided to deploy the filibuster against it. But instead, Democrats cooperated with Republicans and provided them votes to roll back those reforms. So that would be one example. But fundamentally, under Trump, the filibuster wasn't particularly useful to Democrats because Republicans just didn't try to do that much. The reason is not that they don't want to do bad things. The reason is that right now they have the judiciary heavily stacked in their favor. So much of what they want to do, especially things that are unpopular and would be unpopular for lawmakers to actually vote for, they can leave up to the judiciary, things like rolling back abortion rights, civil rights, trans rights, pollution rules and protections. All those things the courts can do. Republicans don't have to bother voting for them because they're unpopular, but they want them to happen. They leave that up to the courts. Republicans used some sort of work. There are a few workarounds in the Senate that you can do to get around the filibuster and its 60 vote threshold. There's a limited number of things that those workarounds can be applied to, but one of them is tax cuts. And so Republicans used that workaround to pass their massive giveaway to rich people and corporations in their tax bill of 2017. So the filibuster didn't help Democrats block that. And then they basically were happy. They kept confirming judges. They had their tax cuts. And there wasn't a whole lot else that they wanted to do. Contrast that with President Biden and progressives, where the list of things that progressives want to do is endless and necessary, I would argue. However, most of these things are going to be blocked by the filibuster. So progressives simply want to do more things. They want to expand civil rights to more people. They want to expand the social safety net. They want to take action against climate change. They want to address income inequality. All of these things require legislation. You can't.
Or so they say. So they say. I mean, progressives and liberals and Democrats could do away with the filibuster, but they're blaming one guy, Joe Manchin, that he's not going to do it. I mean, what are we really looking at here?
Yeah, that's right. And I think the filibuster has the benefit, or getting rid of it has the benefit of sort of bringing clarity to the Senate. It is something that Democrats have liked to hide behind and say, well, we can't do this progressive priority because we can't get Republicans to agree with us to do it. Well, today's Senate is split 50-50. So it has a clarifying effect to say, if you get rid of the filibuster, Democrats can pass whatever they want with just Democratic votes. Obviously, that's not 50, hardcore progressives. You've got folks like Joe Manchin in the mix who will need to be persuaded. But I think that, getting rid of the filibuster will show America what Democrats are willing to do. And I think once you put that pressure on them, it increases the chances that these things are going to get passed. As long as Democrats can hide behind the fact that today, with the filibuster, you need 10 Republicans to come over to give you 60 votes to pass anything. As long as they can hide behind that, there's no accountability. If you get rid of the filibuster and say, okay, Democrats, it's up to you, pass what you're going to pass and show us what you got. First of all, you're going to pass more things. And second of all, I think it'll be clarifying to show what Democrats really stand for.
How quickly could they do it if they wanted to? Could they have done it before the Trump impeachment trial, which probably would have changed the outcome?
Yes and no. They could have done it before the Trump impeachment trial. They could do it tomorrow if they wanted to. They could all it takes to get rid of the filibuster is a simple majority vote. Ironically, you can vote by a simple majority to get rid of the supermajority threshold. And you could really—
That is ironic.
Yeah. Well, the point is, I argue in the book, that this is the way the Senate was supposed to be. A majority in the Senate is supposed to be enough to get things done. That's the way the Senate operated for the first 200 years of its existence. It's the way it should go back to operating now. But the Trump impeachment trial would not have been affected because the rules for impeachment, at least some of the supermajority thresholds, are laid out in the Constitution. So you would need a constitutional amendment to change that fundamental supermajority threshold for conviction. And to pass a constitutional amendment, you also need a supermajority. The key point here is that the framers were so clear that everything should be majority rule that they specified the very small number of things that should not be majority rule and which should be supermajority. And so, those are extraordinary circumstances, and they include removal from office, constitutional amendments, and treaties. So the first two of those things, constitutional amendments and removal from office, you would have run into when you were doing the impeachment trial.
Fascinating. What is on the table right now that if we prioritize the filibuster, or excuse me, getting rid of the filibuster, what's on the table that Democrats could pass?
Well, right now you're seeing a debate over things like raising the minimum wage. They're trying to do that through a reconciliation process, which would allow it to pass with a majority vote and get around the filibuster. It's not clear that's going to succeed. So that could be one thing right away the Democrats could do if they got rid of the filibuster. Paid family leave, extremely popular policy, was struck out of the reconciliation process. So that's on the table as something that can only be done if we get rid of the filibuster, at least in a robust way. And then there are entire categories of things that can only be done if we get rid of the filibuster. And those categories include gun control, and they include civil rights. And so everything that Democrats are contemplating right now in terms of restoring the Voting Rights Act, automatic voter registration, all of the efforts to combat the rampant voter suppression that we've seen from Republicans, which is going on right now. Republicans are responding to Joe Biden's victory in states like Georgia, Arizona, by passing new voter suppression tactics. Everything we need to do on voting rights and civil rights can only be done if we get rid of the filibuster. You will never find 10 Republicans to vote with you on restoring the Voting Rights Act. You'll never find 10 Republicans to vote with you on,
unbelievable.
Yeah, and so all of those things, civil rights, gun control, none of those things will pass unless we get rid of the filibuster.
And what about protecting our environment and mitigating against climate change? Does the filibuster play a role in Biden administration and the Senate being able to do those things?
It's a bit of a mixed bag. Folks would argue that some of those things can probably make their way through reconciliation. The problem with reconciliation is that you're basically at the mercy of the Senate parliamentarian, literally one person who gets to decide on this. So it's a very anti-democratic process, and you just better hope that they decide the way you want them to decide, and often they do not. So a lot of climate change policies, I think, would get struck by the Senate parliamentarian and would not make it through reconciliation. So I think a lot of the agenda to rein in climate change is going to require the filibuster to be eliminated in order to pass.
What are some of the other bureaucratic methods used by minority conservatives to snatch power away from the majority?
Well, they all sort of fall under the category of minority obstruction. There are things like secret holds that are sort of related to the filibuster. There's the fundamental structure of the Senate, which is a big one. It basically tilts the entire chamber in Republicans' favor. So Republicans simply have to win fewer votes in order to control the chamber, just like they have to win fewer votes to control the White House. Today the Senate is split 50-50 between Republicans and Democrats, so right down the middle. But Democrats represent 41 million more people in their 50 seats than Republicans represent with their 50 seats. So this brings us back to the filibuster, which is that the measures to change that would include things like expanding statehood to the District of Columbia and possibly Puerto Rico. DC is a district of about 600,000 people who are predominantly black and brown. They have no senators. Wyoming is a state of about 600,000 people that is predominantly white, and they have 2 senators. So if you extended statehood to places that deserve it, and it just so happens, not by any coincidence, that those places are predominantly black and brown, you would restore the balance of the Senate to something closer to fair. But again, that's not going to happen unless you get rid of the filibuster, because you'll never find 10 Republicans who are going to vote for DC statehood.
We spoke to Josh Holland of Alternate and The Nation, and he gave us some clarity around the issue that Democrats are saying, just like voting Democrats are saying, well, but what if it gets into Republican hands? What if the Senate goes back to Republicans? And his thought was that if we get rid of the filibuster, it's quite unlikely that the Senate would ever go back into Republican hands. What do you say to those people who are fearful that if the filibuster is done away with, that it would be dangerous to have the Senate, the danger is that the Senate would fall into conservative hands? Yeah,
I would say a couple of things. First of all, if you want to keep the filibuster, you are essentially relying on the forbearance of Mitch McConnell to let you keep it. Because if Republicans take back control, they can get rid of the filibuster whenever they want to. So keeping it.
Oh, I'm sorry. That is just, I had to, okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Keeping it now is basically a decision to shortchange progressives on all the things we could accomplish. And if you decide that it's worth it to keep this defensive tool, the problem with that strategy is that defensive tool that you've traded for all these accomplishments you could have done will be something that Republicans can get whenever they want to. So it's not probably a great trade. The other thing I'd say is that, yeah, I agree with Josh that if you get rid of the filibuster, then you can do things like automatic voter registration that Democrats are playing on a tilted field right now electorally, a field that's tilted toward Republicans. You got to even that playing field, and you can only even it if you get rid of the filibuster. And then the Senate, like I said, is tilted towards Republicans too, and you can only even that tilt with things like DC statehood if you get rid of the filibuster. So by getting rid of it, you're passing a lot of things that sort of hedge your bets and make it more likely that Democrats can maintain control and it will play on a more fair playing field. So there's that. The other thing I would say is that you gotta, when you have the power, you just got to do big things. I think that electorally, doing big things also increases the chances that Democrats maintain control. If from now until 2022, the midterms in 2022, Democrats just sort of pass small ball things, we're going to get crushed in 2022, and Republicans are definitely going to take back the majorities in the House and Senate. Our best chance at maintaining those majorities is to pass big things so we can go to the voters and say, here are the things we did that improved your lives, reelect us. But you're not going to be able to pass any of those big things if you don't get rid of the filibuster. And if you keep it and pass small ball things, you're basically guaranteeing that Democrats will lose the majorities in 2022.
Ooh. Adam Jentleson, Executive Director of Battle-Born Collective, former Deputy Chief of Staff to Senator Harry Reid. Your new book, Kill Switch, that explores how the Senate minority uses the filibuster to protect its interest, is out now. I see it over your shoulder. Nice red cover. I love it. Now that you're sort of on the scene talking about the filibuster, which is, it seems to many people to be kind of in the weeds, policy wonk type stuff that doesn't necessarily catch a headline. How can we make this into some exciting stuff that people will pay attention to? And from your position as the book's author and kind of now the spokesperson for what can happen if we can kill this filibuster thing, are you seeing movement? Are you seeing, is there a possibility that this might actually happen?
Yeah, there is. And there's far more of a chance than I would have even dreamed of. Look, in the last week or so, you've had conservative columnists like David Brooks, David Frum, the former Bush speechwriter, Max Boot, come out and basically say, look, if Republicans obstruct Democrats, they should get rid of the filibuster. I never, in my wildest dreams, would have imagined that the sort of constituency for getting rid of the filibuster would have extended so far by February of 2021. So I do think there is a real chance that Democrats get rid of it. I think the votes to get rid of it in the Senate, are almost there. There's a few very vocal opponents, but as a former whip counter, if you come into a fight and your whip count is only about 3 or 5 senators who you need to persuade and bring over, that's a pretty good place to be. So I do think there's a very good chance that this happens.
I think they really need to do it, because if the Republican Party is becoming the party of Trumpers and not necessarily even anywhere, there's like 5 people that are still centrist Republicans and everyone else is becoming rabid. Even centrist Republicans, like those writers that you mentioned, should be all for killing the filibuster. Yeah,
that's right. Look, to put it bluntly, if you get rid of the filibuster, Biden's administration will be a success, and Democrats running in 2022 will have a good chance at keeping the majorities. If you leave the filibuster in place, Biden's administration is going to be a failure, and Democrats will definitely lose the majorities in 2022. It's really that simple.
But not just lose it to like regular Republicans. They're going to be losing it to the people who stormed the castle.
That's right. That's right. January 6th was a shocking event, but it was not a turning point for Republicans. They've just continued in the same direction. This is where the party's headed, and waiting for Republicans to come back around, waiting for an outbreak of bipartisanship.
You don't have that kind of time.
You don't have that kind of time. And we've been doing it for 20 years already, or far more than that. I think it's time to stop waiting and start getting things done.
Any possibility that Republicans will come around and also vote to kill the filibuster, given the fact that they're, as you said, those editorialists are pushing for it?
It's a really interesting question. A week ago, I would have said no. But I kind of wonder now. I think that there's actually an argument for doing it for someone like Senator Lisa Murkowski, who's sort of, much more of a moderate and almost an independent than she is a Republican in this party, because it gives her more power. If she joins with Democrats and you restore, this majority vote threshold, she's the 51st vote on a lot of things. And I think that it would be in her own interest, maybe someone like Romney, who's proposed a proposal to slash child poverty. If they are the deciding votes in a majority rule Senate, they would have a lot more power. Right now, you need to get to 60, and so they're one of many you need to get there. But they would essentially become the kingmakers on many policies. So you could argue that it would be in their interest to do so, and maybe this sort of new conservative support for it might give them a permission structure to do so. I still think probably not, but it's definitely more of a possibility than I would have considered a week ago.
Absolutely fascinating. Adam Jentleson, Executive Director of Battle-Born Collective. Thank you so much for being on the program. I encourage everyone to get the book, Kill Switch, and learn more about this. It's so fascinating. I'm thrilled that you could be here.
Thank you so much for having me. It was great to be here.
You're watching Act TV. Stick with us.